What is going on, everyone? Good afternoon, and welcome to a Tuesday, April 16th edition of Established to Run's NBA Injury Analysis Show. I am Mark Dankenbring, joined here, as always, by Mike Gallagher. We have a very special play-in tournament edition of the Injury Show here today as we are past the regular season. Thankful for us, no more 30 teams on the slate, 15-game slates as we close out with the season with Friday and Sunday. So happy to be here, talk a couple very meaningful playing games here tonight, handling the Western Conference. So we've got the Los Angeles Lakers at New Orleans Pelicans to kick us off at 7:30 Eastern time, and then the Golden State Warriors at Sacramento Kings, 10 o'clock Eastern time. How you doing today, Mike? And how you feeling about these playing games tonight?
Yeah, feeling pretty good. Glad to be over the weekend. Adding Tays more minutes, getting Timmy Allen some juice minutes. No more of that stuff. We are very excited here. No more 30 gamers. No more trying to dig through all the nonsense. So this is pretty exciting. Pretty fun little slate today. I'm excited about both these games. A lot of line movement on the first one that I want to talk about here, and we got some injury stuff to talk about, and we've got a lot of potential adjustments. I think that as always, playing the Warriors adjustment game can be dangerous, but it could pay off, which I definitely want to talk about today.
Sounds good. Yeah, Yao Pete noting here. I'm not in my typical office at home. I am at my parents'. It was my dad's 70th birthday on Sunday, so spent the weekend here, and then with the regular season ending, I had a little family time, which was much needed after a long grind of an NFL NBA season. But let's jump right into it here. You mentioned we have some injury news to discuss, so let's talk about the Lakers here. We'll start with the Lakers at Pelicans game. Jared Vanderbilt and Christian Wood remain out. LeBron James is listed probable with left ankle tendinopathy, and then Anthony Davis questionable here with back spasms after that flared up on Sunday's matchup against these same Pelicans. So, any insight here on Anthony Davis? Obviously, we know back spasms are a little fickle and can kind of pop up at any time. So, any insight here on Anthony Davis? That looks like it to me. Initial words on him, or he's going to warm up with expectation to play. So, curious your thoughts here on AD.
Yeah, this is really the biggest Q tag on the slate. So let's go through what we know. We saw Larry Nance kind of give him a little elbow to the back. We saw him get his back locked up, basically limped to the scorer's table, and then went to the locker room. And then after the game, all optimism, like glowing optimism. Darvin Ham said he's, quote, extremely optimistic that he's going to play. AD said that his back, quote, locked up on him, and that, quote, nothing is concerning for me. He said, quote, there's no doubt I'm going to play. You could probably make it. That happens. Anyone who's kind of had a back injury like that, sometimes, it just hurts for a day and you're better. So yeah, I think he's going to go. I actually took the Lakers. I saw a lot of monies moving against the Lakers right now, which I think makes no sense. Just to give some context here, Lakers won this season series 3-1, and the one game they lost was like a back-to-back when they played Minnesota in like a slugfest. So
Mm-hmm.
like besides the schedule difference, they have smashed the Pelicans. We saw this happen on Sunday. If you watch this was just a bloodbath. We'll talk about the Pelicans guys in a second, but yeah, Anthony Davis full go. He actually lost minutes. He picked up foul trouble in with his fourth with 5:26 left in the third, so he may have played like over 40 here, and then lost the last game. It was decided they had to sub him out, so it wasn't really an issue. But yeah, full go for him. Obviously, this matchup he should crush. Completely dominated both sides of the ball. He's owned this matchup. LeBron's owned it more, which I guess I could get into now. LeBron has destroyed this team. 28, 6, and 12 season averages. Had 13 first half dimes. Finished with 17. Minutes have been really, really strong. I think he's trending for 40. And if you're playing FanDuel, only one player has scored more FanDuel points against the Pelicans this year, and it's, as you would probably guess, the Joker. Nikola Jokic has just destroyed the Pelicans. But yeah, they have no answer for LeBron. As much as we like Herb Jones, he's too small. They just can't contain him. And then we saw really juiced up minutes from D'Angelo, not targeted at all. I want to talk about that when we get to the Pelican side. And then Rui played a pretty good bit. Real tight, not a lot of Gabe Vincent, not a lot of Spencer Dinwiddie, and then Jackson Hayes picking up the non ADs, which we should basically expect again. But yeah, think they're full to go. Again, big line movement about an hour and a half, 2 hours ago, with the Lakers going from -1 to +1.5. I don't agree with that. I don't think the Pelicans have enough answers. It's unless you're playing the full on like zigzag theory, team bounce back. Lakers didn't travel; they were already there. I'm against the sharp money here. I jumped in on that live movement. I took the Lakers plus 1.5.
Yeah, certainly interesting line move, and I agree with you. I'm surprised that the Lakers aren't favored here. When looking at NBA lines, the 1 point is probably the least valuable point in the NBA. So
Mhm.
even though it moved technically 2.5 points across zero, I'm the money line, was about Pelicans minus 105 earlier in the day, and then is now typically around minus 120 at certain spots. But especially given the form of the Pelicans and then Brandon Ingram not 100%, I am surprised here that the Pelicans are favored, especially with you mentioned the season series dominance that the
Mhm.
Lakers have had here. So I'm curious if Anthony Davis goes through warmups and everything looks okay with him, if that creeps back towards the Lakers being favored a bit. I think the questionable tag might be playing a little bit of a factor there, but certainly interesting. And and looking at minutes, D'Angelo Russell got cut down a lot in the playoffs last year. So uh,
Mhm.
I'm curious. You mentioned in our Slack when we were discussing about the matchup with him and the Pelicans. So let's head over to the Pelican side, and you can hit on that as well.
Yeah.
Their injury report is very clean. Just Cody Zeller listed available with the with the face mask here. So maybe in the play-in tournament they haven't removed it. Maybe if they make it to the playoffs, the official playoffs, they would take it off. But I thought it was somewhat notable that there's no tag for Najee Marshall here because we're
Mhm.
thinking the floor for Jonas Valanciunas might be quite low tonight, as we've seen towards the end of the regular season with both Zion and Brandon Ingram healthy. So, just curious your thoughts here on the Pels as a whole, and then how about you touch on the defensive matchup here for D'Angelo Russell and why you think his floor and ceiling is a little higher in this spot.
So I think it's interesting just to look at from a counter punch standpoint. Right, they're going to have Zion. Actually, let me lead with Brandon Ingram first. That's the injury news. This is an injury analysis show.
Hmm.
So Brandon Ingram returned, and in hindsight, like it seems like they didn't want to play him in that game, but that game was so big that they were like, okay, let's suit him up. We saw really short rotations, so he came in at what he landed at 23. And I think had he played better and everything's kind of worked the way they were supposed to, maybe he would have played 28. There wasn't like a real minutes restriction on him, according to Willie Green. And then Willie Green said yesterday at practice that they're going to up his minutes, add to his rotations, and adjust from there. We saw really short first quarter rotation, and then really short second quarter rotation just before halftime. So they were clearly managing him. I've said over and over again that Brandon Ingram is a late recoverer. So it was a little bit surprising to see him out there, but minutes cap, we had a pretty long debate on where to come down on his minutes. So pretty, wide range. But he did go. I mean, he returned full practice yesterday. Again, talking about extending his rotation minutes. They need help here. Joe Val, we'll talk about him in a second. If he gets cut down, we saw Najee Marshall was going to play, according to at least how the beats phrased it. Maybe they kind of took it out of context and he said he was available, whatever, but that's what the beats said. So that was surprising. And when they need his size, man, like Dyson Daniels is too small. I talk a lot about how the Pelicans are number one in pick and roll handler defense for points allowed. LeBron's just different. Like Herb just doesn't have it against LeBron. So he's kind of negated a little bit of a strength for them. And then Joval, his strengths are negated as well. And we've seen that reflect in the minutes, 7 minutes in this game. They couldn't rim protect. Again, that's been a big trend looking through some of the play type stuff. The roll man scoring, the cutting scoring, and even the transition scoring, which isn't obviously big, which actually that is a little bit Jonas Valanciunas related. So a lot of the things that the Lakers were hanging their hat on is things that Valanciunas doesn't help you with. So we've seen this routinely. Joe Val start the first quarter, maybe sneak in, but then maybe not play at all. That Suns game, one of their other biggest games of the year, played 4 minutes done. This time 7 minutes done. He doesn't provide enough rim protection with the way they're going to run that LeBron AD pick and roll game. Just doesn't help. So maybe a zero. Obviously, the minutes would get really tight. Larry Nance did not protect the rim at all. I mentioned a minute ago how many the roll man cutting, scoring
Hmm.
just absolutely roasted them. So there's that. So just going back to what you asked originally, potential counter punches here. They weren't running a lot of like inverted pick and roll stuff. So I think that would be the move from an X and O standpoint. So that means you'd be looking at CJ McCollum or Herb setting screens. I think it makes way more sense for McCollum to be setting the screen. That way you'd have a little bit more Zion, CJ action. CJ obviously a much more deadly shooter. We know he can get hot from three, one of the best pull-up shooters in the NBA. So if you played the switch game there, I think there's a little bit more juice if they did want to go that route. Meanwhile, D'Lo's guarding Herb. I think that the Herb Zion inverted stuff wouldn't be like as juicy as like a successful play type. So I think D'Lo's a little bit insulated from that. That said, maybe they want to get D'Lo in there. Like D'Lo's obviously a terrible defender. Reese is still pretty bad. So from a counterpunch standpoint, I think that that's kind of why D'Lo's like mostly insulated. A little bit surprised that we didn't see a lot of Gabe Vincent and all that stuff. So, but
Mhm.
yeah, there's just not a lot here. We could get a lot of minutes. Like Zion could play 40, CJ could play 40, Herb could play more, but again, just not hasn't been very strong in this matchup defensively. Dyson Daniels was way too small in this matchup. I think they got to maybe try Najee Marshall here. That maybe be another way to cut out Valanciunas in a significant way. And it's a non-zero chance they play Matt Ryan. Like they converted him over the weekend for a reason, right? Like, why not convert him? And maybe they do want spacing. He at least provides that. The Lakers were packing the paint all day on the Pelicans and daring the non-shooters like Larry Nance and others and Herb to a lesser degree to beat them. So yeah, just kind of a random like, oh look, there's Matt Ryan at the table. I think that there's like a 10% chance of that happening today.
For sure. Love it. Love all that analysis. And I do want to get back to Brandon Ingram a little bit because you mentioned the short stints for him on Sunday. The longest stint he played was 5 minutes and 3 seconds to start the third quarter. So do you think naturally kind of the bump for him would be to hit about 6 to 7 minute stints and start the first quarter and then play kind of the end of first, start a second quarter, end of the first half, kind of that rotation to potentially get him up close to 30 or what we've discussed it a lot in our internal Slack,
Mhm.
but what do you kind of think is the actual range and ceiling on
Yeah.
Ingram given the limitation and the potential short stints tonight?
Yeah, he didn't look great. So I think in a perfect, if he comes out and looks great, then considering the stakes, full stuff's on the table, right? But it's hard to go there. We talked about him last year in November, December, somewhere in that range. He was so late to return from an injury that was more severe. This is just contact, bruise, not like
Hmm.
a tear, ligament tear, muscle pull. This is something if you can come back, you can come back full. So I think he won't have like 38, 39, but he could play like 34, 33. So we landed, I think, at 29 for him. Just because the downside, he didn't really have the burst. He had zero interest in getting to the basket, which is pretty much his game anyway. So, yeah, kind of where we're at. I think there's a little bit of downside, but there's also upside. Probably of the star players, it's probably not even close. He has, I think, the widest range, if
Hmm.
you do want to call Brandon Ingram a star.
Yeah,
And I
that
guess
makes sense.
let's talk about. I mean, a lot of people are talking about the Lake. I think this is the stupidest take on the internet. No offense to anyone. What do you do? Like, why would they do that? Why wouldn't you want to play Denver now? Like Jamal Murray's. That's just like Jamal's not 100% yet. You're gonna have to play him anyways. You would think LeBron's gonna like shy away from anybody, and just like you're risking not making the playoffs. You know how dumb that would look if that happened, and you don't even know if you're playing the Kings. You could just be one step like that is the dumbest take on the internet. I cannot believe that like people were like saying that's a good idea. No offense to
Yeah.
anybody out there. I just
I
I just
I
I
I
can't like
I
there's no
understand. I understand the idea and the
100%.
floating of that out there. Like obviously, the Lakers would prefer to play OKC in the first round compared to the Nuggets. I would assume one would
Mhm.
assume. But as you mentioned, just the risk of potentially losing this game and then likely having to play the Warriors for to make the playoffs. I don't think is something that the Lakers or the mentality of LeBron and AD and these professional athletes. I don't think that's something they're going to take at this point. And this game is a 1 point spread. It's not like the Lakers are massive favorites here or anything that they could just roll over it and lose the game. Like they're gonna have to compete to win as well. And there's
Yeah.
a chance the Pelicans could still win. It's not like
Mhm.
it's just gonna be given to the Lakers anyway here. So I definitely think they'll compete and play all out here. I think with these
Yeah.
professional athletes, especially at this stage of the season, they just aren't
Mhm.
even considering losing on purpose to create a better first round matchup for them because they're most likely going to have to go through the Nuggets to reach the finals anyway. And I agree
Mhm.
with you. I think the first round is probably the best chance for the Lakers or any other team to do that before the Nuggets, pick up even more steam and kind of get their
Mhm.
playoff mojo rolling. So I agree with you there. I don't really think that's in the cards here for the
Yeah.
Lakers, despite the public, attention that's gotten already.
It's just fun and new. And then I'll add one more thing. The Nuggets played some of their worst games in the first round. Like the Wolves had if the Wolves had McDaniels and what I think Nas Reed was hurt. If they had those guys, man, that series may have went pretty deep. So
Hmm.
and again, Jamal not fully ready to go. Aaron Gordon's a little bit dinged up too. MPJ coming off illness. Yeah, I mean you're gonna have to face him anyway. So I mean I just take him now. And like
For
as
sure.
chat notes, like hey, LeBron's pretty darn healthy right now. AD looks like he's pretty healthy. We'll see if this back thing is all smoke and mirrors, but Yeah, I cannot stand every time I pop on Twitter yesterday. I was like, oh my god, this thing's still going around. But anyways,
Absolutely. All right. Anything else player wise you want to cover here before we head to Warriors at Kings?
no, I think we kind of covered it. But yeah, just keep an eye on the I mean, we've seen so many. I could see Joe Bell getting like completely cut out. It's like
Hmm.
definitely in the cards, and the market
Awesome.
knows that his lines are so low.
Yep. All right, let's head to the Warriors then. They will be in Sacramento. So the Kings hosting the Warriors here. On the Warriors side, just Gary Payton II is listed out with a calf strain. So he will not be out there tonight as a defensive weapon against De'Aaron Fox. I think the biggest thing to note tonight is against Domantas Sabonis. We've often seen Kevon Looney used by the Warriors to combat him. So curious your thoughts here on Looney's potential chance to get in there in the rotation tonight, and then just any other news and notes on the Warriors here as they enter a true Game 7 winner take all. Loser is out of the playoffs.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on here. The front court is probably the trickiest, which is not unusual for the Warriors. So I think that's the lead here. Let's talk about that. JP2, they're pretty easy to fill those minutes. So as you mentioned, how much does Kevon Looney play? We've got Sabonis playing what I think we have for 39 minutes. We have Draymond Green for a lot lower than that. Trace Jackson Davis, lower than that. So they're
Mhm.
gonna have to find minutes somewhere to guard Sabonis. And we saw last year, Moses Malone, the whole deal was fantastic. Was the second best player in their 7-game series. Obviously, Steph was number one with the 50-point game 7, but we kind of know this rotation. We know, like, assuming the starters, who I should note, they've been great. 69 minutes of this Trace Jackson Davis starting lineup, plus 28.8 net rating. So I think that Kerr will roll with that. I would not be surprised if Kerr pulls a fast one and just like starts either Kuminga, who I'll talk about in a second, or they throw. I mean, Looney looks great. I will say, obviously they've been playing some really crappy teams, and there's context to this stat I'm about to say. But the Looney minutes have gone ridiculously well for the Warriors this month, plus 35.5 net rating in April. Again, context that they've played a lot of crappy lineups, but he's 16-point net rating points better than anyone on the whole team. Like, the Looney minutes have gone so well. I think the time off has helped his legs. I think that there's a chance. I feel pretty strongly Looney's going to play today, which takes a little minute ceiling off Trace Jackson Davis, adding the fact that Draymond's going to play more. Steph, we're projecting him for way more than usual, which we'll talk about.
Mhm.
And then, how many minutes? I think that mostly covers it. But the next question is, how much does Andrew Wiggins and Jonathan Kuminga overlap? We haven't really seen much of this since Kuminga returned from his knee injury. And the really only 1-game sample we have when they weren't like sitting either Dre, Steph, a combination, was that Laker game when they smoked them. And we only saw 4 minutes of overlap of Kuminga and Wiggins. They're going to ask Wiggins to guard De'Aaron Fox. He has not done very well at that job. So very push and pulley. We'll talk more about that in the DFS show and how you want to approach the Wiggins Kuminga stuff. So that's really important to note. But yeah, again, a lot of wide ranges of outcomes here, particularly Trace Jackson Davis. So again, how much does Trace Jackson Davis play? How much does Wiggins and Kuminga overlap? How many minutes can Draymond play? How many minutes can Steph play? How many minutes can Clay play? He's been a pretty good player against the Kings. Minutes have been pretty strong. Who closes? We know that's going to be probably almost certainly Steph. Certainly Steph, assuming it's a close game. Steph, Dre, lock. I think Clay is lock.
Mhm.
Think Wiggins or Kuminga lock. Those guys aren't guarding De'Aaron Fox. So one of those guys is a lock. Who's next? Is it Chris Paul? Do they close small and kind of run the old school stuff? Do they do the old don't run as much Steph pick and roll that they do early, but they run Steph pick and roll so late in important games. So like I think it's a chance that like Chris Paul doesn't close. So maybe it's double wing. Maybe they add a little bit more athleticism. The Kings are playing a little bit slower. We'll talk about them in a second. But yeah, this is a pretty tough one to tackle. Hope I set it up enough there. And
Absolutely. A
one
lot of
actually
different.
one more thing if I could add on one more
Sure,
thing on
sure.
Steph. So they've been sitting Steph a ton. Resting. A lot of people were surprised that they sat him out on a game that meant something where they could have potentially moved up, but they didn't do that. So yeah, I think that's something I just wanted to note. They've been resting him for this moment. This has been a pretty consistent theme from Steve Kerr that we will just take whatever we get. We trust our team to get through whatever we got to get through. But they've been resting Steph for this moment. Steph played 36 minutes against the Blazers. So there's a chance he plays like 40 in this spot and just like, okay, Steph, we're in the playoffs. We've been sitting you. Go do your thing as one of the best players of all time.
Definitely. Yeah. And the bump you're alluding to there is pretty much all season we've had Steph between 32 and 33 minutes
Mhm.
projection as they've been intentionally keeping him low to save him for this moment, as you alluded to. And so currently I think we're at 38, which is a very considerable bump from 33. Plus 5 minutes is no joke, especially when you're considering the range of outcomes there. But I think with this Warriors team, we've seen a lot of time down the stretch where Clay was either coming off the bench or Jonathan Kaminga was out and then returned to come off the bench. So you think the starting lineup here is for sure locked in of Stephen Curry,
Mhm.
Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, Draymond Green, and Trace Jackson Davis? I mean, if
I
what
know.
do you think could be the potential change there if they were to switch things up in the starting lineup?
It'd be well the four. I feel pretty good Clay starting. Like this
Hmm.
is like they're not going to take Clay out, you know. So I feel it's four. I think are locked. Steph, Clay, Wiggins. I'm pretty sure Wiggins is going to start. He's played pretty well, and then Dre. So then obviously, I mean, again, you got to give credit to the plus 29 net rating in 69 minutes. You got to give credit to that. Trace Jackson Davis, a heavy favorite to start, but not a lock at all. I think that they could definitely start Kaminga. He was playing great. Again, I think adding a different look to throw at Fox. Should note, small sample, 50 partial possessions of Kaminga guarding Fox, 3-9 for Fox. So he's defended Fox better than anybody on the team. So I think that could be something. He's a little bit more athletic than Wiggins.
Right.
So like when Fox kind of goes by him, Kaminga can kind of like catch up and block him. So I think Kaminga could start, and I think it would just be like a Looney changeup. So I think Looney would be a big dark horse, but maybe second half. We know that
Yeah.
Steve Kerr loves the second half changing things up. So that's why I think okay, then they, start the regular way and then boom, we get the underdog notification. Or if you're watching the game, you're like, oh, there's Looney starting. So yeah, definitely not far, far, far from a lock that Trace Jackson Davis either starts the first half or the second half.
That's exactly what I was going to hit on as well. We've seen Kerr in his press conferences, you know, consistently comments on the continuity of this current Warriors starting lineup and what Trace Jackson Davis has done there. But if things
Mhm.
don't go well in the first half, specifically, I could definitely see the second half starting with a different five there. Likely seeing Trace Jackson Davis cut out, but you never know there with Kerr and how he manages the rotation.
Yeah, and
But
you have the
winner take
rookie. You have
all.
the rookie big game factor too, working against him as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, let's head to the King side then. I think we handled all the Warrior stuff that we could at this point in time. On the Kings injury report, we have Kevin Herter listed out after undergoing left shoulder surgery, and then Malik Monk remains out here as well with that right knee sprain. So two crucial guard pieces for the Kings here still remain out. Obviously, they have been without these two players for the last 2 weeks of the regular season. So we kind of know what to expect here with Keon Ellis in the starting lineup there, Ellis Island for the Kings, as you have dubbed him. But I also think this is another spot where the starting lineup doesn't necessarily indicate who will close this game. So I'm curious your thoughts here on the Kings lineup and how you think things will go with Keon Ellis, potentially get Davion Mitchell out there, nicknamed Off Night, to potentially disrupt Steph Curry and Klay Thompson as well. So any news and notes here on the Kings without Kevin Herter and Malik Monk?
Yeah, one thing I just wanted to highlight, we're so used to the Kings, they're terrible on defense. The Warriors play fast. The Warriors don't play that fast anymore. They play they cut out transition. This game's going to be a little bit more defensive oriented than we're used to. In fact, post break, the Kings are 12th in defense. And since Malik Monk, they're even better. Malik Monk went down, they're even better than that, largely because they've been playing a little bit slower, a little bit more with adding this defense to their team. So, very unusual to see the Kings be a good defense. Again, a little bit schedule aided, but again, you could see they've been able to lock in more. I do expect them to start. I do expect Keon Ellis to pick up that matchup. We've seen Keegan Murray actually guard Steph pretty well, but I still think they would start Keon Ellis to put a little pressure on him there. So yeah, I think that I feel like the four, obviously Fox, Keegan. I guess maybe I should say three. Domantas Sabonis, and then one of Harrison Barnes, who I think is going to start. I think Mike Brown kind of trusts him. They're going to
Mhm.
leave him open a ton. But I would lean Harry Barnes getting pretty good minutes. But if Lyles is hot, they'll take Lyles over him. Should note, Mike Brown said they're going to run 8 or 9 tonight. So that is the starters. That is Trey Lyles for sure. Davion Mitchell for sure. Eighth man is tough. Is it Sasha Vezenkov? We see him get elevated minutes against the Warriors. Warriors leave open shooters, kind of fits the bill. do they not play a center? We like if you're not taking in the matchup at the matchup context, you would think for sure Alex Len is their eighth man here, but maybe not. So I just wanted to kind of note that, and then maybe Chris Duarte, but they've got 7 guys, and then like a little bit of a sprinkling in for the 8th, and he said they could go 8.5, but they're not going to go 10 today. So someone's getting cut out of these fringy guys. And then last thing I wanted to do here was talk De'Aaron Fox. He has crushed the Warriors 32, 5, and 5. Minutes have been quite strong. We've seen a ton of minutes. Driving machine in this series, and that was with Malik Monk in the lineup every game. So I think Fox has probably the highest minutes upside on the slate today, and that's why I did this. Gave him the cover boy for matchups today. So really excited about De'Aaron Fox. I don't think Wiggins can contain him. They're going to be more focused on Sabonis and limiting him, especially if they do play Looney. So yeah, really excited about De'Aaron Fox's upside here. And then I did want to shout out Keegan Murray. He's been really bad in this series, but he is running extremely cold. He's gone, what was it? He's 20% shooting in his in this series from 3-pointers. But they've been great looks. Almost all of them are uncontested. He just missed them all. So we know he's going to play a lot. I'm expecting, and we know the Warriors are vulnerable at 3-point shooting. So I think we're getting a nice Keegan Murray bounce back. And then Sabonis, what are we going to get? Are we going to get Draymond Green on him? Are they going to get Kevon Looney on him? How much Trace Jackson Davis? Should note the ESPN has a little puff piece on Trace Jackson Davis, which you could take one a different way. So yeah, let me hand it to you there. But yeah, I'm really excited for this. Is like the best playing game. It's not even close to me. Although if the Lakers play the Warriors, like come on. But yeah.
For sure. Love it. I really don't have much to add there other than I do think Alex Len could definitely get cut out here, especially if we get Sabonis up close to 40. I would imagine that there isn't too much time that Looney would be out there not to be on Sabonis. So potentially see, I think Sasha Vezenkov there is a great option as a potential 8th man to supply that shooting that you mentioned. And especially if Harrison Barnes or Keegan Murray aren't shooting that well, you could definitely see Sasha out there to hopefully, knock down and space out a little bit. And just with the De'Aaron Fox comment as well, the matchup you mentioned, just Aaron Drew Wiggins and Jonathan Kuminga, more bigger wings that can handle more size and strength, whereas Fox's best skill is that quickness and ability to get around defenders. So the matchup certainly seems great to him, especially with Gary Payton out on the other side. They don't have that card to play do the Warriors to try and limit De'Aaron Fox. So certainly think the matchup sets up pretty pristine for him.
Yeah. 2 more things to add. Don't forget when they played in the series, they cut out the centers. It was all Trey Lyles playing the center stuff as the series progressed. So that's kind of why I think they're just going to kind of jump into it. It was working, if not for Steph just going completely ham to close out the series. And just to get the actual stat on De'Aaron Fox, 18.3 points on drives against the Warriors is 4 points more than anyone else against the Warriors this year. He is going to drive down their throats all game. I will be hitting some Fox stuff for sure.
Sounds great. All right. Well, that will do it for us today on the first playoff edition. I guess play-in edition doesn't officially count towards playoff statistics here, but that will do it for this edition of the Established Run NBA Injury Analysis Show. Mike and Drew will be behind the paywall tonight on the DFS show at 5:00 Eastern time. So if you would love to hear some more matchup notes and remarks from Drew and Mike how to play this DFS slate, probably give out some more bets as well there. Make sure to head to establishedrun.com/subscribe-NBA to get access to listen to Drew and Mike tonight. And then Drew and Mike will be here tomorrow on this injury show to break down the Eastern Conference playing games, which are a little less exciting, but the Sixers Heat should be an amazing matchup. So it feels so great to have playoff basketball finally here and some meaningful games that we get to dissect and talk 30 minutes about 2 games. I mean, that's incredible. So love hearing Mike dissect every
with like one injury report, with like one injury.
Absolutely. It's the best. So appreciate all you guys being here with us tonight. Make sure to catch Drew and Mike tonight if you are a subscriber. Otherwise, we'll be back with you here tomorrow to break down the Eastern Conference playing games. Hope everyone has a great day out there and enjoys the games tonight. Peace out.